タイの大人は襲えねえような腰抜けに負ける気しねえな。
Wrong secondary writer there, dude.
We opened this week with the twins frustrated over their latest loss and ordered their guy, who was of course the monster from last week, to up his operation. They were also going to rely on their older brother mad scientist, who in turn was dealing with another elder sibling in Glada.
悪い子ね。何企んでるの？
企むだなんて嫌だな。
Thanksgiving with this family would probably be a lot of fun. You know, put aside the cannibalism and all that.
Back with our heroes, Hanto started to move out when he realized that Kiai wasn't going to show up after finding the Madeline wrapper that she had left behind after being caught. And as it just so happened, Shoma was stumbling upon some important intel for his investigation while working at a construction site with Sachika.
工事が遅れてるのに、一昨日妙なことが起きて作業がストップしちゃってさ。
What, did Johnny Somali sneak in again? Seriously, can we just send this a-hole to jail for real this time?
Later, he would enjoy some donuts more than a certain Wizard of the Rings, or at least enough that he could create a new gocho that, unfortunately, and in spite of me buying some donuts for this damn review, he wouldn't end up using this week.
Oh well, any excuse to eat some fried dough is fine by me.
Hanto then came in to ask Sachika to use her intel gathering skills to try and find the bakery, which was mostly just looking up stuff on Instagram. Yeah, that one episode of South Park was pretty spot on. And to further their search, Shoma sent out his gochos and also went out with Hanto, fearing that he would be defenseless against the Grand Newt, which just so happened to be what the investigator was thinking in turn. Yeah, you know this plot probably would have ended a lot sooner if Anya Forger was around. Then again, it might not be around for much longer, but more on that later. Anyway, the two decide to return to the scene of the crime at the Grand Newt's bakery's original location.
確かに。なんか甘くて美味しそうな匂いが残ってる。犬か。
Yeah, sorry, but I think Wonderful beat you to the punch by about 30 minutes.
Though, and speaking of Precure, based on some trademarks as well as the foreman's testimony, Shoma theorized that the monster somehow took the whole building with him, as though it were a certain magical bakery that could somehow end up in the middle of a third world country. Yeah, I really should revisit that series sometime. I kinda miss the sweets Yahtzees. Anyway, they went to another location where the Grand Newt supposedly set up shop and found yet another empty lot and more mysterious tread marks. However, before he quite literally packed up shop, he did make some treats for a nearby nursery school, which the Gochuzos reported in to Shoma, who in turn told Hanto.
幼稚園。
大事なのは質だ。Why don't you have a seat?
Thus, they quickly made their way to the school, but even that had disappeared, which did kind of confuse me at first, as, while I get that he could probably move around his own place in the bakery, how would he be able to move around another established location, especially one as big as a whole freaking school? Well, as it turned out, the answer was right in front of us, but we'll get to that in just a bit. Anyway, since he had only just finished his latest capture, the Grand Newt hadn't gone far, and the riders managed to follow his trail.
こんなところに。
Yep, totally right here, guys.
However, yet again, they ran into the issue of not being able to do much when the other was around because they didn't realize both were superheroes. And as a result of their inability to fully cooperate, Shoma ended up blowing their cover, leading to yet another great Hanto face. Good lord, I love this actor. Fortunately, it did give both a good reason to split up and henching out of the side of the other. Though before Hanto fought him, he ended up asking why Mr. Krabs was after the kids.
Money!
Well, actually, it was slightly darker than that, as in his view, children's smiles made for a tastier spice. Yeah, I know I keep saying this, but this was the show that aired right before this one. Just wanted to point that out. Anyway, Hanto engaged the monster, with Shoma quickly joining in on the fight later. He of course broke out the Gurukhan form, and again, I legit love how clunky this thing is, as it really gets across the feeling that it's a true Mighty Glacier with all of the armor, but still slow as all hell. Behind the scenes, it was likely because the actor was walking around on some short stilts. He also couldn't reach his hands around, so he had to use his chest to operate his weapon, which is just so damn hilarious. However, as big and bulky as this giant lollipop was, he was nothing compared to the monster, who, probably thanks to Neville, could turn into a giant hermit crab. Yeah, fun fact, these crustaceans usually find their shells by either finding some empty ones or just stealing them from other crabs, which is basically what this guy was doing with the school, so yeah, that's actually a clever reference to the animal. Anyway, to get past the villain's defenses, Shoma decided to once again lend Hanto one of his weapons, which, yeah, good on them for not CGIing this, but damn, that legit looks like a really heavy, or at least very cumbersome prop for the poor suit actor. From there, Shoma then used another hard candy Gochuzo to give himself some shoulder cannons, because who doesn't like a little more Dakka? And again, good on them for making a practical suit, but yeah, you kind of have to feel bad for the suit actor's poor back at this point. Anyway, they released the trapped kids, who Hanto managed to pick up by sliding around on some melted chocolate that he had laid out. And yeah, if you couldn't tell, this fight was starting to become pretty crazy, and in spite of the abundance of CGI, especially from this crab monster, I couldn't help but love how over the top it was becoming, especially once we got to the big finish.
Somewhere Zolda is filing his own copyright infringement lawsuit. Yeah, I probably won't make too much off of Shoma, but come on, you try and tell me this dude isn't petty.
With that, they released the kids, all at the low cost of one whole school. Yeah, we never saw it get restored, so as far as we can tell, it blew up with a grand newt. However, our heroes were worried about something else.
唐木田さん大丈夫だったかな。ハピパレのバイト。あいつちゃんと逃げたか。
These two are beyond precious.
Though at the same time, Hanto realized that he was running out of Gochuzos, so he asked if he could get some from Shoma. Of course, the writer who had assumed that his ally was a half-breed like him figured that he couldn't produce Gochuzos, and not knowing that the Valen Buster was basically an electric chair for them, gave him a bunch of chocolates. Though it's also worth mentioning that the Valen Buster toy came with a donut Gochuzo, so he'll likely give it to him later, and this episode is meant to establish how he's going to get his Gochuzos going forward, as Suga can't just keep stealing them. Speaking of whom, and after a sweet scene of Hanto keeping his promise with Kyarin, Suga had gotten a package, which was a flash drive from, Dwayne Johnson? Okay, obviously it was meant to be from the Grand Newts, but come on, compared to some other novelty flash drives I've seen, this is nothing special. You should see the ones from Futo. Anyway, the episode ended with him rewatching this episode, and of course implying that he was working with the Stomach family, as if it wasn't pretty obvious.
This was a solid and very action-oriented conclusion to the Halloween episode from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, while this episode didn't have as much character and story progression as I usually like from this series, it was also clear that they want to focus on the over-the-top action, which they certainly delivered on.
Then, based on the preview for next week's episode, we are probably going to get some good payoffs to just the little developments from this one.
While it should go without saying, our main writers really do make this show. On top of providing some good action scenes with some highly improvised teamwork, their interactions are charming through their inability to just be honest with each other. That said, this storyline is getting a little old, and I do want to see a little more development, which, based on the preview for next week, will be getting just that, as seemingly Hanto is going to end up revealing his identity to Shoma. And based on who's supposed to be the main user of the Donut Gochuzo, the two writers are likely going to somehow further their relationship to the point that Shoma can trust it with him, which I am looking forward to see develop. For now though, this was a much more action-oriented outing, with the mystery of how the Grand Newt moved buildings around being more of an obstacle before the action set piece. And said set piece was just all kinds of awesome, with Shoma getting all of the Dakka, and Hanto even getting an impressive showing through his ingenuity. It was clear that most of the story was in the last episode just to make room for all of this, so I can't complain too much of a lack of it here. As overall, this was a fun, actiony episode that will likely build to some important developments next week. Here's hoping the best for these precious riders and their many, many secrets.
Thank you for watching, and honestly, I hope y'all are at least happy a nice week.
For me, it has at least been an entertaining one due to recent events, and at the very least, it is just nice to come back to these reviews as they are fun to make, and they also give me an excuse to just eat stuff in between.
Look forward to whatever comes next. Until next time, though, for now, my friends, and yeah, I'm gonna need a little more tea for all these donuts. Seriously, donuts with this stuff is really good. You should try it out.